The rain had not stopped for 3 days. The streets were wet, the sky gray, and the city's people moved about with their umbrellas, their eyes fixed downward, avoiding puddles and, more often than not, avoiding one another. No one wanted to make eye contact, especially not with someone who looked like they had nothing left. The world had grown colder, not just in temperature, but in compassion. And there she sat, at the corner of 6th Avenue and Main Street, tucked against the rusted wall of an old bookstore that had shut down years ago. Her coat was torn, her shoes mismatched, and her hands trembled from hunger and cold. She looked to be in her late 30s, though the grime on her face and the pain in her eyes aged her by another 10. A cardboard sign rested on her lap, the words hastily written in black marker. It read, simply, "Hungry. Please help." People passed by, some casting her a quick glance, others turning their heads in discomfort. Some walked faster, tightening their grip on shopping bags or clutching their children's hands a little tighter. She was invisible to the world. Just another forgotten soul swallowed by the merciless rhythm of life. It was close to evening when a boy, no older than 9, noticed her. He was holding a paper bag in one hand, the other clutched by a man in his early 30s, presumably his father. The man looked busy, in a rush, checking his watch and phone at the same time. But the boy tugged at his sleeve and pointed. "Daddy," he said softly. "She looks hungry." The man barely glanced in her direction. "Come on, let's go. We're late." But the boy didn't move. His eyes were fixed on her, unmoving. Finally, she noticed him and managed a faint smile. Her lips were cracked. Her teeth chattered when she spoke. "I haven't eaten in 3 days," she said, her voice hoarse. The father stopped. The boy looked up at him, pleading. "Can we give her something?" The man looked torn. The bag in his hand was from a popular fast food chain. He sighed, knelt beside the boy, and whispered something. The boy nodded, then took the bag from his father and approached her slowly. "Here," he said shyly. "It's a burger and fries. I just got it, it's warm." Her hands trembled as she took the bag. Her eyes welled up, and she looked at the boy like he was the first human to see her in years. She opened the bag, pulled out the food with shaking fingers, and took a bite, barely chewing before swallowing. Tears streamed down her face. "Thank you," she whispered. "God bless you." The boy smiled, then walked back to his father. But the story didn't end there. The man, watching everything unfold, had been quiet. But something had changed in him. Maybe it was guilt, maybe it was the memory of a time he himself had been close to broken, or maybe it was the look in his son's eyes, the innocence, the compassion that reminded him what humanity really looked like. He walked over, crouched next to the woman, and reached into his coat pocket. He pulled out a small stack of bills. Not a few dollars, but a generous amount. "This should help for a few days," he said. She stared at the money in disbelief. I can't take that." "Yes, you can," he replied gently. "My son reminded me what I forgot. We're all human." Her hands closed around the bills, and she began sobbing uncontrollably. People began to stop, not many, but a few. A woman stepped forward and handed her a scarf. Another came with a hot coffee. Soon, it wasn't just one person helping. It was 10. Then 15. Someone called a local shelter. A volunteer arrived with a blanket. The kindness had spread like wildfire. By the end of that evening, she was no longer sitting alone and forgotten. She was warm, fed, and wrapped in layers of generosity and compassion. Her name was Marissa. She hadn't always been homeless. Just 2 years ago, she had a job, a family, and a small apartment. She worked as a nurse's assistant at a hospital and spent her evenings helping her daughter with homework. But tragedy had struck like a storm without warning. Her husband, the love of her life, died in a car accident. She lost herself after that. Grief turned into depression. She missed work, and soon she lost her job. The bills piled up. Her daughter was taken in by her sister, but Marissa, too broken to ask for help, slipped through the cracks of society. "I didn't want my daughter to see me like this," she had once said. "I told my sister I was okay. That I just needed time. But time kept moving, and I was stuck." Her story hit social media after a passerby filmed the boy's simple act of kindness. The video showed him handing over the bag, her tears, the father's donation, and the growing crowd of helpers. It went viral within hours. People from across the city wanted to know more. Who was this woman? How had she come to this place in life? And most importantly, how could they help? Donations poured in. A local news station picked up the story. The shelter that took her in received more volunteers in one day than they had all month. A local restaurant offered her a job. Another nonprofit arranged counseling and therapy for her. But it was the boy who everyone wanted to talk to. His name was Jacob. He didn't understand why people made such a big deal of it. "She was hungry," he said in an interview. "I had food. That's simple. No complex reasoning. No second thoughts. Just kindness in its purest form." Marissa, with support from the community, slowly began rebuilding her life. She took the job, enrolled in a part-time training program to return to healthcare, and after months of therapy, began to heal emotionally. She wrote a letter that was published online. "To the little boy who fed me that day, you saved more than my stomach. You saved my spirit. I had given up on people, on hope, on life. But your act reminded me that even when the world feels cold, one warm heart can light a fire. Thank you." That letter reached Jacob's parents. His father, now visibly changed, admitted on a podcast that he had walked past dozens of people like Marissa before that day. "I used to think helping one person wouldn't change anything," he said. "But I was wrong. It changed everything. For her. For my son. For me." The story didn't fade like many viral sensations do. It lingered. It inspired. A charity was formed in Marissa's name called One Warm Meal, focused on providing hot food to the homeless, with a simple message printed on each food container: "You are not forgotten." Marissa herself volunteered with the organization, speaking to others still on the street, not with pity, but with understanding. "I know what it's like to feel invisible," she would say. "But you're not. Not to me." Over time, she was reunited with her daughter, who was now a teenager. It was a slow process, but filled with healing and honesty. Her daughter had seen the video too. She told her mother, through tears, "I never stopped believing you would come back." And so, from one act of kindness, an entire life was changed. One simple gesture, a meal given without hesitation, sparked a chain of events that revived a spirit, restored a family, and reminded a whole community of the power of compassion. We often underestimate what we're capable of. We think the world's problems are too big, too complex for any one of us to make a difference. But maybe we've been looking at it wrong. Maybe it starts with just one person. One meal. One child stopping long enough to notice someone the world forgot. Maybe that's how change really begins, not with grand plans, but with small, unshakable acts of kindness. And perhaps the next time we see someone sitting alone, broken and forgotten, we'll remember Marissa. And Jacob. And that one rainy afternoon when humanity triumphed over indifference. Because in a world that often rushes past pain, the ones who stop even for a moment are the ones who make the world a little warmer. So if you're wondering how to change the world, remember this story. Start with a meal. A smile. A moment. You never know whose heart you might break open, not with sorrow, but with hope. You never know who might start living again, because you chose to care.